Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flux Dev Meeting, May 22nd, 2024. We have a couple of things on the agenda. If anyone wants to go first, Mateus, I see yours is first on the list.
Sure. Hey, okay. So basically, I'm here today because of this a comment on a pull request that I filed and closed a long time ago for a feature that basically like adding static metadata to the Helm release API. That's literally what the pull request does. Like adds like a .spec .event metadata and adds it to the events sent to notification controller. Then recently this guy just popped in the pull request asking for reopening it and everything. He has this use case of they have an application that uses the GitHub API to create a deployment and also renders a Helm release manifest to a repo, which is synced by Flux. And then they want to like get the event of the Helm release succeeding and back in like, I don't know, maybe the GitHub workflow dispatch thing that you can send notification controller events to or something like that. And they need to match this Helm release event with the ID of the deployment created on the GitHub API they got initially. So like they were expecting to like put this ID in the .spec.event metadata API of a Helm release object to get this event, like to get the deployment ID on the event. And then I suggested the alternative, right? Because back when we decided not to do this, there's even like a comment from Stefan on why this PR was closed, because we have a similar thing for the alert API instead, right? I added that myself as well. Like we have this .spec.event metadata, but for the alert API and not the other objects of Flux. So this solves their problem. Like it just introduces a this multiplicity of resources, right? So like there's a comment. I asked them if this alternative would be enough, just using the event metadata of the alert instead. And they said, yeah, this solves the problem. It just changes my structure a bit. Um, Instead of having like an alert in the root of the repo and like namespace / application / release.yaml, now they have to have like both, right? Like one alert per release. So the ID of the deployment of the GitHub API is set on the alert instead. So they have to have like multiple alert objects instead of one. So yeah, that's what. So they're considering this not the ideal solution, but yeah, it solves the problem, right? As a workaround, at least. So yeah, I just wanted to relay this here today and see if you guys have any thoughts on um maybe if we like are not planning and don't see really a reason to implement this API on all the objects and just leave it on the alert API. Maybe post something there so we can explain them why we're deciding this, like just keeping the API on the alert API only, or if we like have plans to do what they're asking, say so as well. So any thoughts?
Just one question. Those annotation that you want to put, are they putting the annotation on the ham release or into the chart itself?
Actually, I mean, the thing is that they're not putting it anywhere as of yet because
They wish
they
to. Where do
yeah
they
yeah
want
yeah
to put it?
yeah, like, so in
Into
this
the
new
ham
API,
release.
right? Yeah, in the Helm release, yeah, in the Helm release, like the pull request they commented on is a pull request where I was adding this .spec event metadata API on the Helm release API.
Yeah. So the thing I see why it's not ideal is because if I have the annotation metadata on the Hamlet, the annotation, once I have a new action install or update, it means that the annotation have to be part of the event that I sent to the notification controller. And it means that I have to persist it because I want to do if ever there is a rollback, I need to make sure the annotation that I used are not the one that are in the spec, but the one that are part of the previous release. Understand what I say?
More or less. Can you please repeat?
Like if I have a new release V1, I send I send an event with the short version, job version, and those annotations that are now part of the API. If at some point I want to roll back a previous release, so the running back to the previous release will send an event as well. I don't want to send the annotation in the spec because I want the annotation in the previous release because that can change as well if you have a new version. And the issue we have with this is that today, in order to validate a release and make sure the upgrade succeeded, we have that's what we call a snapshot. And what we have in the snapshot is actually the fields that are part of a hand release, I mean, upstream release. And that would conflict because what we have in upstream release and what we have into the Flux ham release are different fields. And the consequence of this would be that for all existing ham release until now, we don't take into account those annotation. If for some reason I start taking into account those annotation, the digest, the checksum of the snapshot will be different, as it will mean that if someone upgrade, all the families will start upgrading to take into account those annotations. And this is something that we don't want to. So instead of having the annotation metadata in the families, what they can do, if they put it into the chart, because you can put annotation into the chart, we can retrieve the annotation from the Helm chart and use those for the event metadata. I can show you that. Don't find
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure their use case like is much, interested in the life cycle of the release and like the annotations themselves. I mean, in the end, they actually suggested of sending the labels and annotations of the Helm release object on the event. But before that, like the use case that they have, like don't doesn't really require like using labels or annotations in like the Kubernetes sense of a Kubernetes object, right? They like it's simply just I have some static data, like some static data that I specify on the manifest of the Helm release, and I want it to be sent across all events related to the object. That's it. Like regardless of life cycle. That's all they want.
Yes. I kind of understand, but it will be simpler if it would be part of the chart.
Got it. Okay.
Like if you look here at the chart, put it in the chart. If you look at the chart, you can add annotations. So if they have static annotation in the chart, and then I guess they can use values file to change those annotation. No, that's part of the values. They can't change it. But if they would have annotation in the chart, it would be easier for us to take into account those annotations into the events if needed. But
Got it. So you're saying like, let's say I have a Helm release object and I use like the values API of this object to like specify. Sorry, is this? Oh, okay, so this is in chart.yaml, right?
in the chart
In
channel, you can put annotations. If they put annotation there, it's part of the chart metadata. So we can use it into the Helm release.
One question, like, so
and
you were
then
saying, like, can you like change the annotations here through the values?
No, you cannot. That's a problem, I guess.
Yeah, that would be a limitation. So because
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Like they want to be like they want to embed information into the Helm release
They want to
object.
do it dynamically. They want to do it dynamically. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
wouldn't say
problematic.
dynamic, right? Like it's just like a field that wouldn't even change it. Like it's on the spec of the Helm release, and it doesn't have to do with anything else of like what the Helm release API implements. It's just that, okay, I have this object. This object sends event to a notification controller. I want to add this static data that I specify on the spec.
Yes, but
on the events.
yeah, but
that's all.
but this is what if I do a rollback? Like if the spec has changed because I've changed the annotation, not the spec, sorry.
Like,
If the metadata, if I change the metadata of the Helm release, and then at some point I do a rollback, but when I do the rollback, I'm going to a version that was taking into account a previous version of the annotations as well. What am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to use the new one that is in the metadata now? Or am I supposed to know that the annotation have changed as well? And when I do the rollback, use the previous ones.
You just have to use what's on the spec of the Helm release object. That's all. If there's nothing there, don't send anything. If there's something there, send it.
But if yeah.
Like if you want to take a look in the pull request, that's exactly what I did there. Like in the Helm release controller. I mean that it's a pretty old version, but literally that there was like just like an event method, and that's the one that builds up the metadata for the event, and it's just like fetching the like using the spec field of the Helm release object, and there's this event metadata field, and it just adds to the metadata. That's all. So there's like literally there's no relationship at all with rollbacks or anything. It's just, send what's on the object.
I can say a few things that I'm observing, maybe incorrect. This data can be not directly related to what we release, similar to the reconciliation interval. We don't care what the previous interval was. We use whatever was there in the spec. Similarly, this metadata can be something that's not directly related to the chart or anything. But when you're reconciling, you take this into consideration.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but for now, I think thinking this way makes sense.
Yeah, if that's the case, it makes sense. and it wouldn't conflict with the release at all.
Do we have something similar in customization or adding custom metadata?
Yeah, no,
elements?
I don't think so. Like, and one problem that I see of adding this API is exactly the fact that we would probably want this API across all the APIs, right? Like, that wouldn't be a reason for us to have this only on the Helm release API. We would
Right.
want this across all.
Can it be, instead of spec, can it go to annotation itself with a special key? And in that key, whatever you set in for the value, that is included in the effects.
I didn't quite
Just
understand.
questioning why should it be in spec? Can it be a special annotation key?
Yeah. That could be something as well. Like, that's actually what the last suggestion from the person. They were wondering if, like, why don't we just like send labels and annotations? Like, yeah, but you're right. Like, it doesn't need to be a field on the spec, like in the other API. We could just like send labels and annotations that would be functionally equivalent, I believe.
Well, I think the difference is that if it's in the spec, if you change it, you have a new version. If it's in annotation, it doesn't change anything.
I think that's preferable because we have been discussing about moving towards suspending through annotation instead of spec.suspend. So this kind of aligns with that idea of moving such properties to annotations or labels, which are like related to operation of reconciliation, not result of reconciliation.
Yeah. Another thing is that if you want to put it in the spec, it means we need an RFC because now Helm API is v1 as well as the source one. And if you use annotation, we don't have to change the spec. We don't have to create a new RFC.
Okay.
Yeah, any more thoughts? Or we can maybe discuss this again in a separate issue where you can document different approaches and discuss what to do.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay, shall we move on to the next topic?
Next topic is mine. Last week I mentioned about integrating AWS Nuke to the test infra Reaper tool. Today it's ready. I have been able to use it to destroy all our test infrastructure. It's faster than deleting through Terraform and seems to be very reliable. If anybody wants to review it, they can review it. It's using a fork of AWS Nuke because upstream AWS Nuke does not commit the mocks that they use. So there's a fork by another company, and it seems like they are reliable. So I'm using their fork for now.
Sonny,
Where
are you using the fork by Eric?
No, Optum, I think.
Are you using it? Okay.
They have their own some temporary environment creation tool where they use AWS Nuke.
There's a friend of mine who's maintaining an AWS Nuke pretty extensively.
Oh.
That you may be interested in. I've used it previously in a couple of roles. I'll add it to the Google Doc. He actually had some issues with the one that I think you're referencing.
In the PR, if you open and go to the go.mod file, I have linked the issue where this is discussed, and people from Optum, they show that they have a fork where they come with the mock, generated mock files.
Got it.
So in the pull request, I have documented all the details, how it integrates with Reaper, all the outputs and JSON output, and how you debug if you want to. I will merge it soon, and then the next task for AWS test infrastructure would be for documenting which are the permissions we need properly. Right now, I'm just using admin policy, admin role for testing these. And then I have to write some Terraform configurations for generating IAM policies and roles that we use for the tests. I think that would be almost complete for all the AWS tooling that we need.
Sunny, if
Hey,
you want, I'm happy to review that Terraform code for you. If you just point me in the right direction.
That would be like next week, I guess.
Sure.
Okay.
Hey Sunny, I got some notifications around EKS control plane being left in a weird state. Did you clean that up?
When did you receive the notification?
I know, I received hundreds of things while I was in vacation. 2 days ago or something like that.
I've been monitoring. AWS console shows no clusters running. Maybe when you delete, they send you notification. Maybe.
No, it was something that it's the control plane has no nodes and can't be deleted or something like that. I don't know. It was an error. I can't find it.
Not sure. I've been monitoring the cost explorer. It shows what I'm expecting. It doesn't show anything, any stale resources.
Okay, I found it. So they are saying we have an impaired cluster that has no more subnets. Something. I'm guessing.
That's possible. When deleting AWS, you deletes the node groups first. So it's possible that the cluster reaches into this state, and then it deletes the EKS cluster.
Hmm.
Maybe AWS starts sending notification when this happens. And maybe there is some configurations to suppress this notification. I'll check.
Yeah. So the message, so we don't have anything in affected resources tab, right? In the health dashboard.
Let me check. It should be 9. No, nothing.
And another
That
thing
dashboard. Another thing?
Another thing that I have received is that we have surpassed the free credits. But I'm guessing that were the free credits when I created the account, not the
free tier, maybe, when you create a
free
new
tier.
account.
Yeah.
Okay. The health dashboard is empty. I don't see anything.
Cool. Yeah, so maybe when you try to use the old purge mechanism, it got left into the weird state.
Possible.
Did you hooked up the testing package?
No. So the infrastructure that I'm creating is from the CAS infrastructure, but they are not directly related. I'm creating the infrastructure using the OCI test tooling or the code and deleting using the repo tool.
Okay, so next step is enabling.
Documenting the permissions first, granular permission, and then creating Terraform configurations for creating the policies, roles, which will also automatically add the credentials into GitHub secrets. I think you remember I gave you some instructions to add GCP secrets to GitHub secrets. That kind of tooling. We already have it, just have to add it for AWS. And once that's done, we should be ready to launch this thing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Topic.
Okay. I've been testing out distribution of Talos Linux called Cozy Stack that has a couple of Flux community members on the team. It's pretty neat. It's definitely still cooking. It's in a pre-release state. There are some things that are not quite 100% about it, but the bugs that would have prevented you from running a Flux, a normal Flux bootstrap on tenant cluster are fixed now as of yesterday. There were some miscellaneous bugs between Cilium and Kamaji. This is really neat. It integrates a lot of tools that I would not have thought to combine in this particular order. It runs virtual machines for Kubernetes nodes and attaches them to a Kamaji control plane, which is sort of like a virtual control plane or a full control plane. Each cluster gets its own private network. It uses distributed storage for things that need distributed storage and local storage for things that are going to get replicated anyway. Anyway, the fixes are not in a release right now, so if you want to try this out, I can point you in the right direction. You just want to use the latest image, but it's a really neat platform. I want to give them some input from the Flux team about the way they're using Flux, but I don't want to just go and crap on their design because it doesn't make sense to me right away. They're using Helm, not Flux Bootstrap at the cluster level, which kind of makes sense because it's a managed installation. And when it's managed from outside, I don't know if you need Bootstrap. But anyway, you can bootstrap tenant clusters normally, and users can use Flux like any cluster consumer could. So that's good. Any questions about that before I move on?
So one question, will you add a docs page related to Cozy Stack in Flux docs?
I would like to make sure we are all in agreement about their use of Flux first, because the way that they're using it, I'm still not 100% sold on, and I think it's evolving. But yeah, we should definitely consider linking out to their docs at some point when it's a little bit more fully baked, I think. They're on the adopters page anyway. If there's no more questions about that. I heard from Christian Hernandez that he would like to show off cargo to the Flux community. And he was asking, is there an appropriate venue for this? And he had pointed him to Flux Bug Scrub. And I said, yes, I think that makes sense. I don't know anything about the content of the presentation other than he says you can use cargo with Flux and he wants to show how. So I think that seems like a good thing for Bug Scrub. So we'll set a date at some point in the future if he's still interested.
Sure, sounds good. Do we record bug scrub?
We will if there is a presentation. Typically, we don't.
Okay, yeah, so make sure you record it.
Yep.
One unrelated question. Should we merge the bucket API for certificate pull requests? I have approved it.
Yeah, I'll merge it. I was on vacation. But this will go into the next minor, so no backward. We'll just merge it in main. I was thinking about other stuff that we have in Git repo which are missing from bucket and OCI repo, like the proxy field. So in Git repository, we have a reference to a secret which can contain the address of the proxy and authentication. And it's called proxy secret ref. And I think we should, like, is the same stuff with the certificate, right? People moving from Git repo to OCI repo or to bucket, they will run into issues, right? If they rely on self-signed CAs, they can't mount them. If they rely on proxies, they can't specify them. They have to fiddle with the for proxy. They can actually do it at the pod level, but that's not multi-tenant friendly. So I think we should add proxy secret ref to bucket as well before we do bucket GA. What's your opinion on this?
I think similarly, we also had a discussion a long time back about adding this in OCA repository. I think we should be adding it to all the relevant sources.
Yeah, so OCI repository has cert secret ref, but doesn't have
Proxy.
proxy. Bucket now has cert, doesn't have proxy. Let me see her repository. Yeah. So we should basically add proxy secret ref to both OCI and bucket. Matthew, can you
Yep.
click on this? Yeah. Okay. I'll create two issues. So we have separate pull requests for this, even if the code is somehow similar.
Mhm.
But I would like to have a pull request per API, so we don't change in one pull request we don't touch more than one API object.
Of course.
Not sure how easy it is to test it. Sunny, do you remember, do we have a proxy mock?
I think we have some tooling for Git testing.
Yeah, for Git, and I think it's in the Git server. Yeah, so Matthew,
Go proxy, I think, is a tool. Go proxy, use Go proxy, I think.
Okay, right. The upstream, the standard library has a proxy implementation. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so Matthew, it will be more about figuring out how to test it again. The main
Cool.
challenge.
Sounds fun. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll create the issue, then I'll ping you, and I can assign them to you. Okay,
Cool. Thanks.
thanks again.
What about Helm repository? Do we need to add proxy support there?
Helm repository already has a proxy supporting the main secret.
Oh,
You know, because for Helm repository, we followed the Helm configuration format, the CLI, where it has when you do Helm login, whatever, it has this format, and we also kept the name of the fields like in the Helm config. So that's why Helm repository is a monolith, the secret ref with all the fields that are in the Helm config. I'm not a big fan of that, but Helm repository, it's about Helm, so we followed the CLI config. So I don't think we should do anything around Helm repo.
so the
Just
SDK takes care of that.
what?
Helm SDK takes care of that. Is it?
Wait, let me look. Yeah, I think we use this the getter, Helm getter, I think looks at those fields. Yeah. So no, let's not mess with that. It's V1, I'm not let's leave it like this. And do it only for bucket and OCI. Anyway, the main use case here is having people moving from Git repo to something else, and they will not be moving from Git repo to Helm repo. It makes no sense, right? It's like, what other API objects can be used to replace a Git repo are OCI repo and bucket, right? So here we should strive and have a one-on-one field match. So when people migrate back and forth, is not, they don't have to change anything, right? Especially, I'm very interested in having Git repo with OCI repo one-on-one around authentication, proxy, certs, everything like that. They should be interchangeable, basically. Also, bucket, we've seen users which don't want to use OCI repo for some reason, and they rely on buckets instead of Git. So okay, I'm done with this topic.
Okay,
Uh,
Sonny? Sorry, we can't hear you. There you are. Wait,
can you hear me?
yep, now.
Okay. Last week, people from Microsoft joined and they asked if they should create separate RFCs for the existing passwordless authentication. And I told them, okay, because we had a discussion about implementing them separately. So maybe RFCs can also be separate for each of the providers so that we can go into much more details. So in the meeting, I told them, okay, let's create separate RFCs. And I think they submitted a new RFC for Azure only. Any opinions? Is that
I
fine?
told them actually that I would like them to keep all the provider because I want to make sure that we have the same, that the API is sound for all of them. I told them that they could take off the part that is related to caching because we are working on it and it doesn't really need to be part of the passwordless RFC. And Deep, I think her name is Deep. I forgot her name. But anyway, she submitted a new RFC.
Okay.
Yeah, I've closed the previous one. So yeah, we have a lighter RFC for passwordless, no caching, nothing like that. Talks about only authentication, which is great, and includes Azure, GCP, and GitHub. And I don't see why we should create an RFC for each provider. It should create an RFC is provisional, right? You can do partial implementation,
Oh.
and so it's okay.
No, I think their use case are, I think they were from Azure and they may not interact with GCP. Like initially when we were adding, we interacted with all the providers. This is a Microsoft developer. So I got the sense that maybe they do not want to indulge in GCP related things. So keep Azure separate if they want to.
I mean, I think that's not really our problem. I can help if really Deepti doesn't want to go deep into GCP and GitHub. But I think we should have one RFC for all of those. Make sure the API is okay.
Yeah, I agree. Also, GitHub is Microsoft, so
They asked one more question. So in our roadmap for 2.4, under Git integration, we have 2 points which look similar. First and the second under Git integration. First is passwordless authentication for Git repositories. Second is implement virtual entity path for Azure DevOps repositories. So they're asking, are they separate or the same? I think they are the same.
I need to update the roadmap. So there are separate things, as in RFC with passwordless authentication is a requirement. Then implementing the implementation part are separate tasks.
Okay,
It
the first one is
doesn't
for
implement passwordless authentication for all providers. It links to the RFC, right? So I have, given the fact that they said, hey, we are not sure how to implement GCP, whatever I haven't added GCP as a requirement to the next release. What I added as a requirement is for the RFC to be approved merge, and only then we can implement Azure and GitHub. Anyway, I have to update the roadmap because the link now goes to a closed pull request.
Okay.
Also, I need to update it to add all the buckets issues after I'll create the one with the proxy, and also add the link to the pull request with cert secret ref that I'll be merging now. So yeah, the takeaway for me is I'll have to update the roadmap. Thanks for notifying it.
Okay, we've covered everything that's on the agenda, I think.
In that case, can we just can we come back to that subject? It's just because the guy's kind of expecting an answer from me, so I wanted to say something in the pull request. So, Stephanie, we're not here when we first talked about it, but basically, do you remember the .spec.event metadata API that we implemented for the alert API? And we also had like, we closed the link is on the agenda. Like we closed the pull request for Helm release API in favor of this other one on the alert API.
Mhm.
And so yeah, basically the guy like came asking if we can like reopen that one on the Helm release API and everything. So I showed him the alert API, and they said it's like it solves the problem, but like they would like to have because now, so the use case they have is they have an application that uses the GitHub API to create a deployment and also render a Helm release manifest in a Git repo that is synced by Flux. And then they want to get an event back when that Helm release is deployed. And they want to match the deployment, right? Because when they create the deployment on the GitHub API, it has an ID. So they want to like render this ID as a field somewhere in the Helm release manifest. And with that, when the event comes back, they can match the Helm release with the deployment ID and close it, right? Consider like update the deployment as succeeded on the GitHub API. So the solution now is like having one alert per Helm release.
Mhm.
And they were expecting to have like just one alert for all of them. And that would be possible, like if the metadata field was sent by Helm controller on the events by grabbing something from the Helm release object. Either like, so that's something we already brought up. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be .spec.even metadata, right? Like it could be labels or annotations from the Helm release object as well. That's something Sunny brought up and the person brought up as well. So I just wanted to know like if we have anything to like say to him because he kind of asked me, hey, did you bring this up in a meeting yet or anything? So I'm doing that now.
Yeah, I'm not. Anyway, I'm not for making a special case for Helm release.
Yeah.
We
I thought the
If we
same.
make
If we
something,
like,
it needs to be for all reconcilers. Flux custom
yeah, agreed.
is image update automation, right? So these are the three APIs which are acting on sources. The
Mhm.
first two are changing the cluster state. Image automation is changing the state in Git. But no matter, these are the APIs which drive changes to systems, right? So we need some kind of unified way of adding metadata to events issued by these controllers.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. That would be my main point as well.
I think we could think of something like annotation domain. So in annotations, you have a domain key, then in the annotation key, I'm saying is a domain / something, then the value, right? So it's like,
Yeah, the API group, like in the notification controller even filters out, right? Like it expects the API group of the object to have to be a prefix on the
yes.
key. But
Yeah. So we can come up with a subdomain for our for this that we can filter upon. Let's say
got it,
event,
like a fixed one, right? For all.
yeah, let's say events.toolkit.fluxdev.io / something, whatever you want to call your special annotation, and then the value.
Mhm.
Right? And then all these three controllers, customize, Helm, image automation, when they send the event, they should look up the annotation of that object. It's already in there. It's in memory, so that should be easy. Filter all the annotation by this fixed domain and subdomain events.toolkit.fluxd.io. Take the key values, inject them into the event, and send them to notification controller. Right.
Then we
And
need the change on notification controller as well, right? To accept that. Yeah, because today I checked the code this week, like it literally expects all the, like it will only include keys that have a perfect match with the API group of the object. So we will have to like allow this special fixed domain to be allowed as well, besides the API group of the object.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we need to add it to the allow list.
Yep. Well, yeah, that sounds really good to me. I can I could like maybe open up the feature requests in the repos that we need. Maybe I don't know, maybe just one in notification controller or the others as well, and update the thread and like give an update to the guy.
I was thinking since this is applicable across Flux, why not create an RFC?
Yep. Yeah, it should go as an RFC.
How does that work? I never opened one. Like, do we have like a single repo where do RFCs?
Yeah. Yeah, it's in Flux too. And you have a template and it's documented.
Oh, cool. Cool. So I can like fill that out with what we discussed here.
Yep.
Cool. That would be great. Thanks.
I'm also not sure if we should limit this to. I think it should be generic, not limit to 3 controllers, but to all.
It should be across all the objects, I think.
Yeah.
People may have use case for every object.
Yeah, so any Flux object that has an annotation that the key starts with events.toolkit.fluxd.io, the controller should include that key value in the event metadata, no matter the controller, and basically we'll have in fluxd package runtime a function, a helper function that looks at the metadata, filters, extracts, and annotates the event. I think we have a bunch of logic around events. We can just add a function to it.
Yeah, there's like annotated event F, right, in the events recorder.
That's how you pass metadata to events. Yeah. I think there is another helper where we pick specific keys. I don't remember where. I think there is some tooling. Have to check later.
Yeah, somewhere in the events package under, so runtime events package, here we can have a function that you either call in annotated event F, or we call it in each controller before annotated event F to create the annotations. We need to think about it, but it's just implementation detail. Basically, here we should have this function somewhere, then use it everywhere.
Yeah, so like there's 3 functions, right? The event F, and both call annotated event F, and there we do everything, right? And I was wondering, like, I think we already received the object in that function, and we call that reference dot
Yeah.
get something, right? So I guess like inside that function, we could look up the annotations with the prefix and
Yep.
send them. Yeah, prepare. Yeah. So this way, we probably don't need to change anything on the controllers, like just bump this library, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
So if I understand what you just say, the annotated event, it receives what we provided. I don't think in that function we go and check metadata of any given object. So
Yeah, we don't
controllers
like.
have to pass the annotation, and it can
Yeah,
pass
that.
it to
Yeah,
notation
that
as well.
function receives a dictionary to pass. But I was saying just that since we already received the object itself, like this way we can look up the annotations of the object in the function, right? This way, because all the controllers are already passing the object to this function, we can just use it to read the annotations of the object.
Yeah,
Can be done, yes.
No, I think it's fine because we specify the annotation map here because each controller has its own special annotations. But now we
Yes.
are introducing common global annotations for everything.
Yeah,
So
that
it
would
should
make sense to
still
me.
be a separate function that takes an object, returns the annotation map, and also takes the prefix, the filter. We write tests for it, then we can call it in annotated event F. And yes, by just updating runtime at the next minor release, we'll get this everywhere.
Yeah, just one question. Does this function you're saying, does it need to be exposed or can it be just internal?
No, it can be private in here in the events, right?
Oh, got it. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. So like the functionality itself is just added to annotated event F, right?
Yep.
But we just do it in a neat way. Cool. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, and this will solve other things as well. For example, people want. So I have added the app version metadata to Helm controller events, right? The app version in the chat. But that solves only half of the requests of users. Some users use image update automation to bump the tag in the inline values in the Helm release. So they don't update the app version. They use image automation directly on the values. So the app version that we add to the metadata for these users has no value. But if we add these generic annotations, they can use the same image automation marker that they place it in the inline values, but they can also place the same marker in the annotation values, in the annotation value, right? So they have some event.toolkit/ app version something. Then they add the marker there as well. So when image automation controller patches the Helm release, it will also patch the value in the annotation and the tag in the values, in the Helm release values. And then when they will receive the notification, they will have the actual tag that got patched in the event. So that solves that kind of request where people are, even if we added events now to the image automation controller, people want to see on the Helm, on the event issued by the Helm release, there the tag that got bumped. So this will basically solve all of that, and we
Got it.
kind of close the loop.
Just a couple of questions. So the first one is, I think I can see coming questions about, are we going to support labels as well? Like, so we're talking about supporting annotations. Do we plan to support labels as well or not?
No.
No.
I think the
Okay.
reason for that is annotation can have unstructured objects. Labels have strict structure.
Yeah, labels are very impactful to your Kubernetes cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And second, because they need to be indexed in etcd. And second, the label value has to be a DNS value. So if you have the image tag example, there's not a DNS. Sometimes is not DNS compliant and it will fail. So no, we are not going to support labels, only annotations.
Cool. And the second question is, in the RFC in Flux 2, should I be specific about implementation details or just like describe how the functionality should be, like how to use, just structure the annotations, add the prefix, and well, that's pretty much it, right?
There is a section for implementation details at the end.
Oh, cool. Okay. Thanks.
And there we can discuss about the key that we'll use. What should it be?
Mm-hmm.
Look at merged RFC. So there is an RFCs directory in Flux 2 in the main branch. And you can see there those that got merged. Structured is also in the template.
Oh, I see. So like the RFC gets comments before it's merged, right? Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a normal PR, right? Like we iterate on it through the comments and then we merge. Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole point of request for comment.
Yeah,
right?
of course. That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. Okay,
Cool.
we are over time. Any other things?
Yeah, just quickly, I won't take too much of your time. I just wanted to remind you that I exist. I'm still working on the provider. I'll be uploading the RFC for the provider in the next week or so.
Great. Adam, please make it about Helm releases, right? Like we discussed, not everything.
So I've been doing it with the help of someone from Ericsson from the kind of Helm standpoint. So it's using the Helm events kind of in the POC I'm doing.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam, for continuing that work.
Thank you.
People were quite excited about having events for Helm releases, CD events. So I think there are users really want it. So it's not.
Seems so, yeah.
Yeah. It's not just an
I wanted
exercise.
to ask, will this also be included in the roadmap for next release?
Sorry?
Will CD events provider be added in the roadmap for the next release?
I'm not too sure. When actually would be the next release? The next big Kubernetes release, I guess, soon after that.
Yeah, usually
Q3.
2-3 weeks after 131. But yeah, we can't decide now. Let's see the RFC first, figure out the amount of work, and then decide if we want to add it to the Q3 roadmap or Q4.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Then I think that's it. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks. Sorry for being late.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, same.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you.